So, welcome you into the pastor's office today. I thought today I would give a treat to some of the kids in the congregation. I have a couple of books from a series called Proverbs and Parables, and so I thought I would read a book to the kids. Maybe it'll give the parents a break too. You can stick the kids in front of YouTube for a little bit and listen to this story. So this is a story called The Foxhole. I'm going to attempt to hold the pictures up so that the kids can see it while reading the book at the same time, all on a laptop computer video. So we'll see how this goes. But the foxhole. There once was a fox named Finnick who lived in a hole at the base of a mountain. It wasn't a very big hole, but it kept him warm in the winter, cool in the summer, and safe from danger. It was the one place in the whole world that he could call his own, so he loved it. But one day, Finnick heard a bird chirping in a nearby tree, and he said to himself, "Why do I have to live in this hole while that bird gets to live up there?" So he decided to leave his hole and find a better home somewhere else. He found an old tree with sturdy limbs and tough bark, and he tried to climb it. He fell quite a few times at first, but eventually he reached the lowest branch. After climbing higher, he found a thick, cozy bundle of hay and twigs, and he nestled inside it. "The view is so much nicer up here," he said. "This tree is a better home for me." But not long after, a hawk swooped down from the sky, grabbed Finnick with sharp talons, and dropped him hard from the tree. "Go build your own nest," the hawk squawked, as Finnick walked away with a painful knot on his head. He then climbed higher up the mountain and saw a big cave in the rock wall. "This is 100 times bigger than my hole," he said as he entered. "This cave is a better home for me." He lay down in the darkness against a large rock and was pleased to find that it was as soft as a pillow. But the rock turned out to be a hibernating grizzly bear, and he didn't like being awakened. "I'll teach you to interrupt my sleep," the bear roared, swiping at Finnick. Finnick raced up the mountain as fast as he could, gasping for air once he reached the top. "That was a close one," he said between huffs. He then spotted a thick patch of grass and collapsed in it. "The sun is so much brighter up here," he said. "This mountain is a better home for me." But soon after, a mountain lion crept up from behind and swatted Finnick with a strong paw. Finnick flew over the mountain's edge as the lion roared, "You're lucky I'm on a diet." Fortunately, there was a rushing river below, and Finnick made a splash rather than a splat. The current carried him a long, long way until it stopped at a large dam. Finnick climbed over the dam and spotted a little round lodge made of mud, sticks, and logs. He shook the water from his fur and felt cozy again. In my hole, I wasn't this close to the river, he said. This lodge is a better home for me. But a few minutes later, a mama beaver stormed in with 2 frightened kits. "I'll knock some sense into you," she yelled, giving Finnick a good swat out the door. Finnick splashed into the water again. When he had climbed back to shore, a delightful aroma captured his senses, and he followed it into the woods. Eventually, the aroma led him to a big log cabin. Once inside, the aroma grew stronger and stronger, and it lured him into the kitchen. "I've never smelled anything so delicious," he said. "This cabin is a better home for me." But as soon as he stumbled into the kitchen, an old lady screamed at the top of her lungs and grabbed a double-barreled shotgun. "You better be glad Papa ain't here," she yelled, firing the gun. But the kick from the blast sent her flying back through the door. Finnick escaped the blast and darted into a much smaller house nearby. "I almost lost my head," he said, gazing at his new surroundings. "This will make a good home for me." But seconds later, a bloodhound appeared in the doorway, with his sharp teeth, long snout, and droopy ears. "You may have outfoxed my old lady," the dog growled, "but you won't outfox me." The sounds of barking and scratching filled the doghouse as Finnick tried to wiggle himself free. Finally, he managed to slip through the dog's gangly legs, and he stumbled away as fast as he could. Finnick was all beat up. His tail was tattered, his legs were sore, his head was knotted, and his fur was patchy and wet. "I've got to find a good home soon," he whispered in a worn-out voice. And so he made his way back through the trail, back along the river, and back through the forest along the base of the mountain. Eventually, he came to a small, familiar hole behind a large tree. He crawled inside the quiet, comfortable den he had once dug for himself. Well, it doesn't have the view of a tree or mountain, but it's hidden from hawks and lions, he considered. It doesn't have access to a river, but it's dry and warm, he added. It's not as big as a cave or a cabin, but it will keep out bears and hunters and hounds, he concluded. Yup, this really is the best home for me. With that, he lay down on his favorite bed, next to his favorite toys, and fell fast asleep. Be content with what you have. You know, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard when we suddenly can't get to do everything that we like to normally do. But that principle is good, not just for kids, but for adults too. And so I hope in this season of life, which is really challenging in a lot of different ways, I hope we can all remember that lesson to be content with what God has given to us.